Welcome back to our lectures. This is chapter 7, and this chapter is fairly easy, I think, to understand. It's not as complex as some of the others. I'm talking about those preschool years and that physical and cognitive development in children. I sound hoarse. Gosh, sorry. Also, just a few things. I don't know if I've shared this with everyone, so I'm going to share it now. We were approved for our KCREP self-study without revisions, which means they're going to approve us for a site visit. There are revisions, but they're not going to send us an addendum, which is super, super exciting. Would have loved to tell everyone that in person. I got that email last week. So that is fantastic news for us. That means they're going to go ahead and schedule our site visit. Two, Dr. Muller and Dr. Powers and I are doing Facebook Lives every 2 weeks on racial trust building and social justice issues. And we're going to have a diverse group. We did our first kind of trial run last Wednesday. Some of you were on there, Summer, and would love to have others join. We have alumni who are going to join, and then special guests. We're going to have courageous conversations. And Dr. Muller is going to give us questions or talking points where we talk for about 45 minutes about what's going on and having these courageous conversations. So it's really, really exciting part of advocacy and social justice. So if you're interested, check us out. So much going on, so exciting. Also kind of a scary time with COVID-19 going up. I think we made the New York Times this week, shamefully, for having like 730 cases, or we were kind of a hot spot, LaGrange. Some of you may not actually be in LaGrange right now, but anyway, just be careful and stay safe during all of this. Well, let's get to it. Physical development. There are a lot of individual differences in children. You are constantly plotted when you go to the pediatrician, when you do your checks for height and weight, and then plotted on a chart compared with the normal range. And then, of course, there are outliers sometimes, and those are ones to be looked at to see, are you not growing enough, or growing too much. Boys are slightly taller and heavier than girls of the same age, but they chart that growth progression. There's a ton of variability in children. The brain is quite large by the age of 3. I think it's like 80% of the growth that is going to be for your whole life. But that brain growth is greatly affected by what's going on in the child's home and the experiences of the child. We talked about this earlier with the genetics and genes being turned on or activated, or certain areas of the brain not developing in the way that they need to, or certain areas underdeveloped because they're not getting that attachment, not getting their needs met. That great plasticity in childhood. Gray has fallen like 25,000 times on his head, and the pediatrician's always says he's going to be fine. So hopefully that's the case. Oh, there's a cat at my window looking at me. I don't know what it wants. It's not my cat, but anyway, I do say these things so that you guys are not. Sometimes I think it helps your attention because again, here we are back at this beautiful slide. But brain lateralization. It is a common misconception that you're either left brain or right brain. That's not really a true thing. We know that left brain is logical processing and language, and spatial recognition and recognizing face emotional patterns is right brain, which is why EMDR works so well. Because when we have, oh gosh, there's another cat. What is happening? It's like cat. There's another cat. There's 2 cats on my back porch looking in at me at the window. I wish I could videotape this. It's like wild and I'm sorry out there. It's just so funny to like be sitting here reading, like doing this, and cats popping in my back door window with their face at the window. Cats from across the street. Hello, cat. Okay. Anyway, EMDR. This is why the EMDR works, because we're bringing both hemispheres on. And when we have a traumatic event, those emotions stay stuck in your right brain, right? And we're being triggered. So if your father was really rough on you and would yell at you, his facial expression would be a certain way. And then if you perceive someone's expression to be that, it will trigger that right brain and say, danger, danger. you're in danger, and you may not even know why you feel that way because your left brain is not activated, which is where that rational processing comes in for you to be able to look at it and go, oh, I see what's happening. No, you're really not a threat. So you can't perceive those threats because right brain's activated. And so bringing left brain on will help right brain to understand if the threat is real or perceived. We all know about left and right handedness. Oh my goodness. I'll never forget. I took Grayson to a preschool one time and they said he was dominating with the left hand. Did I want them to work on that? And I said, no, it's fine if he's left-handed. I thought it just really, we really hurt children at one point, making them be right-handed. And we really have this right hand dominant culture. And instead of letting children just develop, and we kind of lend ourselves to try to influence our children to do that, which is not okay. A lot of gross motor skills happening up until the age of 5. Children are trying to ride a tricycle. Children are hopping and jumping and throwing a ball, and you can see those large muscle groups are developing. Physical activity is very, very important in preschool age children. We know that sedentary lifestyles really increases the risk of children being overweight, and really important for them to have a lot of physical activity. So, as a counselor, why do you need to know these things? Sometimes I think I like to talk about that. You need to know because people are going to come. You may see children, and they may come in, and you may say, part of the problem may be that they're not getting any physical activity. They're not at optimum health, and one of the things they need to be doing is getting outside for an hour or two a day, or helping the parents to educate them about what it is that children in this age range really need. So also fine motor skills might be next. Yep, it is. This is where you are learning your fine motor skills, like writing and drawing and cutting with scissors and all of those things. And it's important for children in this age range going up into kindergarten to have an opportunity to practice cutting paper and drawing and coloring. And when children are from lower SES, they oftentimes don't have the opportunity to practice these skills. So another important thing to understand when you see a child and you're trying to help the parents, trying to help the child catch up. We know that health-wise, kids get sick constantly when they are little. They're being exposed to viruses and they're preschool and most serious illnesses are controlled by vaccines. And you've heard a lot about the controversy of vaccinations, but the overwhelming um, research does support vaccines. So the most common disease is dental issues in kids, and then obesity is on the rise. It's tripled in the last 30 years, which is really important to note. But the leading cause of death is unintentional injuries, where they're hit by a car or fall on their head or fall off their bike. And 77% of those accidents occur at home. Vision and hearing impairment. Vision impairment is rare. Um, and screening and early diagnosis of hearing problems happens at your pediatrician. And if for some reason something's going on, then you would recommend them for a pediatrician. I often do this with kids or parents who are coming in and talking about issues that are going on, and I say, first and foremost, when's the last time you've been to your pediatrician? Because I was recently seeing a child, and I do see kids sometimes. It was a crisis situation; no one could see the child, and so I did, and I got extra supervision for that as well. But I started with the pediatrician, and then also went some other routes as well with the school and school counselor, et cetera, to get a comprehensive view of what was going on with her. I'm like losing my voice. We know sleep is super, super important for children, right? And children 5 to 10 need 10 to 11 hours per night. And this is another thing that is really important. So the kid comes in, and what I do is an Adlerian technique. If they can do this, take me through your day. Who wakes you up? What do you have for breakfast? What happens next? Who takes you to school? What is that like? Tell me about your first morning. Tell me about your teachers. Tell me what do you have in your lunch? All the way to who puts you to bed. And what I do that for is to find out about all of these things that we're talking about. What are they eating? Are they playing? Who's talking to them? Who's playing with them? Are they sleeping? A lot of times you find out people come in and they'll say, oh, they're falling asleep with the TV on and they don't go to bed till 11 o'clock and then we have to get up at 6 and they're 9. Well, probably part of the problem is they're exhausted. So, and you have to be very gentle with this because a lot of times people just don't know. They've not had this information. No one's taught it to them. No one did it for them. So you need to think about that environmental and genetic passing on of family. And so what they learned could have been maladaptive. So helping people to understand, been looking for. It's kind of like I feel like a detective sometimes. I'm not I'm not trying to prove a lie, but instead trying to find out what the root cause is for the issue that's going on. And quite frankly, sometimes it's been that they had a Pop-Tart for breakfast, they weren't sleeping, and they weren't eating lunch. And sometimes it's been the IUD from a woman. So a lot of the things we're talking about are very, very important for you to weed out as you try to figure out what is going on with behavior with a child especially. There are two main stages of sleep, non-REM and rapid eye movement. There are other stages of sleep as well. We know that there are 5. Gosh, I need to refresh on my sleep stuff, but um, we know REM is where the eye movement and increased brain activity is going on, and then the non-REM is low heart rate, less slower breathing. Really interesting research coming out about sleep. Nightmares are common, while sleep terrors are rare and more frightening and associated with stress. Sleep terrors are just a really more frightening, debilitating type of nightmare that causes issues. Um, Big events or things going on in the life could cause those to begin. Um, Sleep disorders can happen in early childhood, maybe difficulty going to sleep or waking up a lot. And then co-sleeping is super controversial. And then one of the ways to think about this is you could have a couple come in, and this is in your book, but you could have a couple come in, their 4-year-old is sleeping with them every night, and one parent is for it and one parent is not. And I see this a lot. I see it just with individuals, I've seen it in couples, and I don't specialize in couples, but I certainly have seen them before. Um, and so you have to kind of navigate that. But co-sleeping can be controversial. It can increase bonding, but it pose dangers to infants. That's a lot of times how SIDS can occur if there's like a smothering of the baby. Um, so it's just something that you have to follow your clients and figure it out. What's best for the child, what's best for the children. Why are they doing that? We often don't start out with Helen or Gray in our bed. With the pandemic, we play like musical beds because everyone's sleep schedule's off, and we just kind of had to throw it to the wind and say whatever, right? So one may everyone's sleeping in and staying up later, and it just is what it is right now. We're going to get back on track when we have to. For this for this time, we're just letting it roll. So one may toddle in, not toddle, I guess. I have a 9 and 5-year-old, but my little 5-year-old will come in and say, I want to get in bed with you. I'm like, okay. So it is what it is right now. But anyway, it's just funny to think about. I think a lot of us are in that state right now. So here's Piaget. You will need to know Piaget inside and out. He was on your quiz. He'll be on your next quiz. He will be on your test. So if you notice some of the quiz questions, actually some of them were very geared to help you think about NCE and make you know what you'll need to know. Those things are really important. This is everything that you need to know about Piaget. I'll never forget how many questions. Watch him not be on there, but he was for me. He was on there a lot. So there are different stages of cognitive development in Piaget's model. And the first one is pre-operational. There was a quiz question, right? Where you had to put these in order. And so hopefully you got them right. Sometimes there's a compare and contrast on this test, and sometimes there's an order question, etc. So very important to know the order. So the pre-operational stage. So in the pre-operational stage, there are 2 substages, which are preconceptual and intuitive. Preconceptual is from 2 to 4 years, and you see that with the imaginative play. And then moving in after 4 to 4 through 7 is more of the intuitive stage, characterized by intuitive thought rather than logic, and the logic is starting to come later. Um, this process, he's a constructivist. So Piaget believes that knowledge is constructed, and the way it's constructed is by assimilating and accommodating new information. So if the child has a new experience and it can assimilate into a category associated with something they've already learned, it assimilates in. Or there's accommodations made for a new schema. New schemas are developed, and then if another occurrence happens, they will put that data into the accommodation area. There can be disequilibrium when there is an unbalance in the ways that everything is incorporated into the schema. Let's read an example just to make sure. Sally and her mother frequently visit the park near their home. The park has a pond with ducks, and Sally loves to bring bread to feed the ducks. One day, Sally is visiting at her aunt's farm and she points to a chicken and says, "Duck." Her aunt corrects her, saying, "No, that's a chicken." Sally frowns and then tentatively says, "Chicken." Here, Sally had assimilated the concept of duck and applied this schema to her aunt's chicken. When Aunt introduces the word chicken, there's disequilibrium, but then it accommodates the new information and learns a new concept of chicken. Ducks and chickens are somewhat similar, but she is now able to distinguish the difference. The mental structure of duck has been modified. New information about the concept of chicken has been added, and her view of the world is expanded. I like that example. A duck and a chicken. Now we're going to continue in pre-operational. Okay, we already know that children are egocentric. They believe that everyone else knows and experiences the world as they do. Other concepts that are important in this stage with pre-operational is that children are unable to understand that inanimate objects aren't living. They believe lots of things are real, which is one of the reasons to be really careful with scary things, right? So Mickey is real and Belle is real. It's really fun when you go to Disney World when they're this age because everything's real. It's kind of cool. They you know they don't know that they're dressed up and paid yet. And in artificialism, they believe that the rain and the sun are caused by people. And this stage is characterized by a lot of symbolic thought. They think of things in symbols and they ask a lot of why questions. And I can attest to that. And they have this innate sense of justice. It's called immanent justice. They have an innate belief in a just world, and they make causal connections between their own misdeeds and later adversity. In conservation, this is during the intuitive stage of pre-operational thought. Children also master the concept of conservation, and this is that old experiment with the same amount of water poured into a different vessel, like a different test tube, a tall, skinny one. And children who master conservation realize that the amount of water has not changed, but children who have not think that there's more water in the taller beaker, even though it's the same amount of water to start. And that's a classic experiment from Piaget. Then we move into Vygotsky's sociocultural theory. This is another social constructivist theory via Vygotsky. He was a Soviet psychologist whose work was relatively unknown in the West until the 80s after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. He's considered a social constructivist theorist wherein knowledge and meaning are constructed through interaction with others. Vygotsky thought cognitive development was contextual and relational, and his theory is often referred to as a sociocultural theory due to the importance of cultural social context in relational interaction. Let's see. Language is important. Children use that private speech, that talking to themselves, thinking out loud to regulate their actions. Um, Children develop strategies through private speech to make sense of things and make decisions. It also develops strong mental processes and increase their cognitive development. And we've talked about some of these already, but remembering the zone of proximal development, the difference between what one can do independently and what one can do with assistance from a more experienced person. And scaffolding is where someone who has the experience helps the person who doesn't to get to that level of understanding. And this is how Montessori works. Um, the older kids, they have a range of ages in there, so 3 to 5 in the primary class. And if the 5-year-old knows how to read or knows how to do a work, they will help the younger kids, and that's what scaffolding is. I just said that. Those kind of classrooms cooperate all of those things, and that's what Montessori does, which is really cool. But regular school doesn't. So how is information processed in the brain? So this encompasses how those cognitive processes are attained, stored, and used. First, all the information comes through the senses. So there's this sensory registry in our brains, and it takes in all of that information before it goes into working memory. Very short process. Attention moves information from the sensory registry to working memory. Remember what working memory is. It's where we reason, comprehend, and problem solve. It has a very limited capacity and short duration, 20 seconds. Now, remember, we can hold as adults 7 plus or minus 2 items or chunks of information in our working memory. This is why phone numbers are chunked in the way that they are. If you guys ever tried, you know how you're quickly trying to remember a phone number or a code or something, like a code to get in your bank or right, you get that text code to get into certain things and you're going 66954, 66954, because it's in working memory. But preschoolers can only have 4, but chunking, like a phone number, helps us remember it easier. So that's why it's chunked in 333. Like, because we can do the chunks, or we can't, if that was all one number, I still can't remember my husband's social security number. I should be able to, but that's why it's chunked as well. It helps us remember it. And then long-term memory has a large capacity and a long duration. The information is stored in the long-term memory and can be accessed through retrieval pathways. The more we use and enrich information, the more pathways we have. I hope you're storing this lifespan development in your long-term memory. Also thinking about our work and the way that memories are stored. I was about to say, I know that I do not have much left because not much left in here. Okay, learning strategy. I want to say something else about this. I think I'm going to do our forum response here. Forgetting long-term memories is something that is proven. But it's not that they've forgotten it, it's that they cannot access that retrieval pathway. Just as hiking a trail or path becomes overgrown and disappears if not used, retrieval pathways in long-term memory may become difficult to find if they're not used, or if they were not initially encoded in an elaborate manner. Our brain has the capacity to cross-reference memory, and the more we use and enrich the information, the more we have access to the information. So look over Proudstan Rush, or Proudstan Memories. This is when you're triggered and flooded with memories. In Reflection 7.5, it says, I grew up on a farm but have lived many years in a city. Needless to say, nowadays I rarely encounter the smells of a farm. One fall, I happened upon an autumn display at the supermarket. Pumpkins and leaves were exhibited upon several stacked hay bales. As I smelled the hay, I was instantly taken back to a happy childhood memory in the hayloft of our barn. You guys can read this too on page 186. A childhood event I had probably not thought of since it happened. The scent took me there immediately. I want you to respond in the forum. I want you to respond as if the trigger had not been favorable. I want you to talk about triggers in the brain and how something that is not favorable could be recalled and how you deal with that in therapy. So take that one and just flip it around and tell me what your opinion is on the fact of blocked memories. Let's have a little fun with this one. You don't have to base it on anything, but what is your opinion on repressed or blocked memories that could be triggered and come out in therapy. I'm interested to see what you guys think. We know that rote memorization does not work like cramming, so that does not create those elaborate retrieval pathways that we just talked about in long-term memory to put it in long-term memory, which is your goal. Elaboration is to create easily accessed retrieval pathways. You have to enrich and elaborate. So hopefully you're reading the chapter and you're listening to me and you're answering the forum and then you're actually elaborating and learning this. It's going in long term. It may even be assimilating with old information you've learned. Preschoolers are able to remember events like nobody's business. Okay? My son knows what I ate 6 days ago for lunch. It's insane. Um, they have the ability to develop specific autobiographical memories during early childhood with self-awareness and increasing their language ability. Just specifically like birthday parties and big events and things like that can remember really clearly. All right, language development. There are 5 components of language development. Okay, phoneme. I should probably let this out. Hang on. Let's see how to say it. I was right. Phoneme and morphemes. I just needed to make sure. A phoneme is the smallest unit of language. Okay. Um, and morpheme is the smallest unit that has meaning. So it's the smallest unit. There are 50 phonemes in the English language. And phonological awareness is the ability to distinguish phonemes. A morpheme has has meaning, right? This includes nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, etc. Semantics. This one I knew. I did not remember phoneme and morpheme. I don't know if I was not an English major. Semantics, the use of words to express meaning and thought. Syntax is the manner in which words are arranged in a language, basically the rules of language. And pragmatics involves the use of language in a social context, such as asking a question, giving a command, or the use of a nonverbal cue. All of these 5 factors have to come together for a child to understand language and be able to use language effectively. The first imitations, first spontaneous words, achievement of 50 words, combinational speech, and the use of language to talk about the past. Preschool children learn roughly 9 new words a day. By age 6, they've attained a vocabulary of approximately 14,000 words. I could definitely attest to that because Gray is going to be 6 in September, and it's unbelievable how much language has developed in the last year. It's crazy what he says to us. Okay. All right, I already talked about this. This is language development. Okay. Education. Children need stimulating and motivating educational environment. High quality childcare has beneficial outcomes like more likely to go to graduate school, be successful in careers, and that's harder to obtain for low income families. High educational television can enhance literacy, but you also have to monitor that TV, right? Which I have not been doing during the pandemic. Oh, tried. It's hard. It's hard to work from home and parent. Anyway, all right. And then we have interventions like Head Start. We talked about this before, and it was in your reflection. Last time, I think, was this reflection. A lot of you gave me the name I couldn't find in my last lecture, which one was Head Start, and um, the one the Early Start program with the babies. Babies can't wait. I think that was it. And so children in Head Start, and one of the students even told us in her reflection that she was in a Head Start, and now she's in graduate school. So obviously, this is working, and so glad that we have these programs to help people who wouldn't otherwise have access to good early child care. Step parentings, active parenting programs, etc., that help educate parents. And here are some questions for your self-reflection. You do not have to reflect on this. I already gave you your forum post, but just something for you to think about. And we're done. Ooh, I did it 30, less than 30. Okay, bye. I'll see you in a minute for my next lecture.